Ever obey a rule so literally that it ruins the person who made it? These 6 malicious compliance stories will make you laugh, cringe, and scream. They deserved it. Story number 1. Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. To clarify a few things, this took place in Europe. I was a salaried employee, 40 hours per week. I left that job about 10 months after the event took place. I didn't get into trouble and nobody tried to fire me. My probation period was over, and we have employment laws regarding constructive dismissal, so I knew their hands were tied. About 4 years back, I started a new banking job. All was well, just that the management was pretty strict with timekeeping, which was weird as we were back office. My experience was in a similar field at another bank, and we had flexible schedules and received time in lieu. But rules are rules, so I followed them. I learned my tasks and got to know the wider team. Anyway, about 4 months in, I started to realize my senior manager didn't like me. I'm pretty assertive as a person, and I do know how to stand up for myself. He hated it. I would speak up during the meetings, ask questions, give suggestions, and so on, while the team would stay quiet. The week everything went south, I was working overtime, which was, obviously, unpaid. On Thursday, I did nearly 2 hours of overtime. On Friday, I thought I'll leave a few minutes early as I was done for the week. My manager was off. I left 10 minutes early. On Monday, I come to work, and I got called into a meeting straight away. There were 3 of us in the room: myself, my manager, and my senior manager. Our conversation went as follows. My manager, I heard you left work early on Friday. Me, I did. I left 10 minutes early. Did you ask for permission to leave early? Me, it was 10 minutes. You know, I did about 4 hours of overtime last week. Why are we having this conversation? Senior manager, because you left early without asking for permission. As a senior, you should be setting an example for the rest of the team. Me, is this a joke? Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., not 9 a.m. to 5:50 p.m. You shouldn't leave early without asking for your manager or my permission first. Is that clear? Me, got it. It's perfectly clear. I listened and started coming into the office at 9 a.m. and leaving at 6 p.m. on the dot. At first, they didn't realize what was happening, but the week after the meeting was the last week of the month. And let's say the last week of the month was intense, especially the final day. The reports had to be completed, signed off, and submitted before the month's end. We covered multiple jurisdictions and would deal with Southeast Asia in the morning and the Americas in the evening. Our team was expected to work overtime due to this. Here comes Friday, the last day of the month. Showtime. I'm at my desk at 9 a.m. sharp. Most of the team have already been at the office for at least an hour. I, of course, have a cup of coffee from the cafeteria because I was a bit early. My manager looks at me and raises his eyebrow, but he doesn't say anything. Work. Break time. We had 2 20-minute paid breaks and 1 hour unpaid lunch. I'm the only person to go on my break. Lunchtime. Everyone was eating at their desks while I go to meet my friends for lunch. On the second break, I once again leave my workplace and go for a short stroll around. Back to work. About 5:45 p.m., I get a call from one of the senior managers in the U.S. She needs the report amended. There were 4 of us on that call. I'm doing the amendments as we speak and closely monitoring the time. I see it's 2 minutes to 6 p.m. 1 minute. 6 p.m. SM2, rambling about the report. Me, apologies, but I have to stop you right here. SM2, yes? Me, it's 6 p.m. here. My day is over. SM2, huh? Me, as per my management, my working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., so I must leave now. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up on Monday. I logged off, got my coat, wished everyone a great weekend, and left. It was 6:04 p.m. Both my manager and my senior manager were dumbfounded by what has happened, looking pale, and stare at me in disbelief. It was a glorious sight. I wanted to apologize to my senior manager that I wasn't able to leave at 6 p.m. on the dot, but I thought that would have been way too passive-aggressive, so I just left. I relaxed the rule a bit after a few months. Yet, I never did more than 30 minutes of overtime. Ironically, once my stakeholders understood that I will not be available for 10+ hours, they started collaborating earlier in the month. I would have most of my reports done and submitted by the last day of the month. Story number 2. Everybody must know when I am out of office. So yeah, a couple of years ago, I was working for an IT company which also provided server management and general domain and email services. We had some really big companies as clients, so we were used to some really idiotic demands. But most of the time we could convince the people whose main job seemingly was to be in charge to listen to our expertise. Not so Mr. Bigwig. Mr. Bigwig was the CEO of a large automobile sales company. He also was the type of guy who prided himself with being a great negotiator and thinking so far ahead, regular people can't follow. And he was a complete ass to everyone. Mr. Bigwig went on a holiday once and set up an automatic out-of-office reply in his mail account. But, as is the technical standard, everybody who wrote him during that time only received the reply just one single time. When Mr. Bigwig returned from his vacation, this infuriated him a lot, so he called our support line and yelled and cussed his way up our hierarchy until he had me on the phone. I tried to tell him that this was working as intended and tried to explain why, but Mr. Bigwig wouldn't have any of it. This went all the way to our CTO, who sent him a waiver to sign, stating that we would deactivate this limitation, but not be liable for any consequences, in short. Then he told me to make the changes to MB's account. I tried to object, but the CTO just smiled, shrugged, and went into his office. Mr. Bigwig was happy. He won and booked this as his latest negotiating victory. Now let us jump to December the 29th of the same year. I get a phone call from Mr. Bigwig. He is not happy. He is not happy because he is blacklisted on about every blacklist in existence. He is also not happy because he can't receive or send any email. And he is not happy because he can't find any mail he received during the Christmas holidays or near them. He can't find them because the nice number in brackets besides his inbox folder that indicates the amount of unread mails he has reads 50,000. A quick look around the server logs tells me there are indeed some mails he did not receive. 150,000 to be exact. They are still pending delivery because his inbox is full. He is also not happy because he is the laughingstock of everybody he ever respected. Now let me guide you as the reader to the bottom of this. What you don't know, and we also did not know at the time, is Mr. Bigwig was member of a very exclusive group of business owners, CEOs, and high-ranking politicians around the globe. The kind of people you would imagine sitting around a large oak table, smoking cigars, drinking €200 whiskey, and discussing world dominance. This group had a mailing list. A shitty, basic mailing list. It went something like this. Bigwig, out-of-office reply. Hey, thank you for your mail, but I am on holiday. I will reply later. Some random dude at mailing list. Merry Christmas. Mailing list at everybody. Hey guys, some random dude is wishing you Merry Christmas. Bigwig at mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I am on holiday. I will reply later. Mailing list at everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Bigwig at mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I am on holiday. I will reply later. Mailing list at fucking everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Bigwig at mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I am on holiday. I will reply later. Mailing list at fucking everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Bigwig at mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I am on holiday. I will reply later. Mailing list at fucking everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Repeat until the servers give out. So B. Diddy was not the only one who had thousands and thousands of mails in his folder. All his fancy pants networking contacts had too. Mr. Bigwig raged hard at everyone who was brave enough to get on the phone with him, threatened to sue us for millions of euros, and to end us as a business. We finally put him through to our founder, who listened to his rant and told him he would send him a solution within the next 10 minutes. He sent 2 documents, a scan of the signed waiver, in which the consequences of disabling the out-of-office message restriction were outlined in detail, and a service contract, allowing us to fix the problem to our abilities without any financial budget limitations, but with a really nice, enormous, estimated budget. It was a good year for the company, with an unexpected spike in revenue, just before New Year's Eve. Story number 3. The cheerleaders can break dress code because they're school uniforms? Guess I'm wearing mine.
Someone's story about their friend wearing a skirt to school and getting bloomers reminded me of my own malicious compliance in high school. Way back in 2013, I was a sophomore in high school, and there was a tradition that on Fridays, the cheerleaders, football players, without their pads of course, band members, and the other groups performing wore their uniforms to class. This wasn't a written tradition, and only the cheerleaders and dance teams' uniforms broke dress code. Nobody really batted an eye to it. I wasn't a skirt person, but I liked dresses once in a while, sorry. As one can tell by my user, I grew up in Texas, and it's still significantly hot in August/September. So one time while wearing a casual sundress in September, I was pulled out of class and reprimanded because the end of my dress was 4 inches above the knee, when the dress code said no shorter than 2. I pointed out the cheerleaders and dance teams' uniforms every Friday and how they reached mid-thigh at their longest, but was told that was okay because students can wear official school uniforms, and was sent home to change. Clearly, somehow someone had forgotten I was on the golf team. Immediately my mind was turning to the next Friday. The school had recently upgraded the golf team uniforms the year prior, and the girls' team uniforms consisted of a short-sleeve collared polo shirt and a skirt. If you don't know what a skirt is, it's essentially a skirt and short shorts combined. It looks like a skirt, but they essentially act like built-in bike shorts, and these fuckers were short, I'd argue shorter than the average cheerleader skirt. So that next Friday, about 3 days later, to my parents' surprise, I was ready to go that morning in my golf uniform, as compared to taking a bag to keep the clothes in to change into after school. But I just said, Fridays, we can wear our uniforms to class, and they accepted without question and took me to school. Well, by second period, I was sent to the office yet again, and the first thing the assistant principal asked me was why I would deliberately disobey her right after our last conversation and threatened in school suspension. I'll never get anywhere in life by not listening, yada yada yada. When I finally had a chance to get a word in, I said, but this is my school golf uniform, and I pointed to our school's logo that was sewn into my polo shirt. You said students can wear official school uniforms to class. Why are the cheerleader uniforms okay and mine isn't? This isn't even a skirt, it's a skort, it has pants. I still remember how pissed off she was. She stared me down for what seemed like a millennia. Then she snapped and told me to get out of her office and go sit in the lobby area. That I knew what she meant and she would be calling my parents about this blatant disrespect. So I waited and played on my iPod and chatted with the nice secretary, trying to keep myself distracted because in reality I had been really trying not to cry. I had massive anxiety when it came to authority, but I still had my naive sense of injustice, and I didn't just want to let this go. After about 20 minutes, she popped her head out and in a very monotone voice, told me I could go back to class and to let teachers know I had gotten permission from the front office to wear my uniform. Then she went back in and closed the door before I could even think to respond. I spent the rest of my day dealing with teachers questioning me about my outfit and 1 or 2 calling the front office to double-check my claim that I had in fact gotten permission, and went to practice after school as normal before being carpooled back home. My dad met me at the front door with a small smirk, and I asked him what in the world happened, because I knew he was the go-to contact for my school, so I knew she called him. He explained that when she called and tried to get him to come to the school and get me and talked about punishments for my insubordination, he immediately began to argue with her and admitted he raised his voice quite a bit, asking why I wasn't allowed to wear my sport uniform that the school provided to me as a dress requirement at my golf practice, and mentioned taking this all the way to the school board and resolving this obvious favoritism. He then asked me not to do that again, but that he was proud of me and told me I know I had told you never to start a fight, but to always fight back. I always thought physically, but you damn sure took the advice.
Story number 5. Boss tells me I'm not a manager, so I stopped doing her job. This happened a few years ago in my last apartment. My roommate and I were living in a basement place with upstairs neighbors, and the owner decided he wanted to sell. The upstairs neighbors ended up buying it and became our new landlords. And they were awful at it. I could fill a whole post with the amount of stuff they tried to get away with, but we're here to talk about one particular instance. But suffice to say, they had no idea that landlords had responsibilities and simply saw us tenants as a source of income that should be ever-growing. Hence our rent suddenly spiking and why we left. But there was one time they maliciously complianced themselves. See, they had a habit of trying to push stuff on us that was blatantly illegal. Their first contract, for example, said among other things that they had the right to enter the apartment at any time they wanted and could go through our stuff if they wished because we were living on their property. I pointed out that this was highly illegal, and they grew very upset, saying, well, we'll see about that. This clause later suddenly became the real one before we signed. One day, however, our lone fire alarm stopped working. As dutiful tenants, we reached out and said, hey, the fire alarm stopped working. Their response was a predictable sort of, so what? We need to have a working fire alarm, we replied. And it's the landlord's duty to provide working fire alarms. No, it's not. You want one, you get it. The law says otherwise. And here's where they maliciously compliance themselves. Possibly because they were getting tired of being corrected, they got snooty with this one. We got a very sarcastic response. "Oh, it does it? Well, we'll just see what the fire marshal has to say about that." Me and my roommate, upon receiving this message, burst out laughing. But they were serious. They thought they were going to contact the fire marshal. He was going to side with them, and then they could come down on us hard. I don't know what their expressions were when we said, "Okay, you do that." However, the next morning there's frantic knocking at our door. There's the landlord and his family, looking very concerned, with a bag of brand new fire alarms, one for each room, and if I remember correct, even 2 spares. He begs to be let in outside of the 24-hour notice, and says it's an emergency. He has to put these alarms up right now. Trying not to laugh, we let them in, and they hurriedly put one in every single room, apologizing profusely for the delay and telling us, "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." I don't know how that meeting with the fire marshal went, or if they got him or someone else at their office, but their attitude painted a pretty clear picture of the ultimate result. They complied maliciously, thinking they'd called our bluff. Whoops. Story number 4. Landlord maliciously compliance themselves.
For background, I work in mental health and substance use services. I have worked in my job for a long time now. My boss is never available for help and hardly on site. Recently, she has got a new manager who is not impressed with her work ethic, but then lockdown happened and he had to shield. She has gone straight back to her old ways. Boss will often ask me to do her work for her to save her coming in, which I have never minded doing up until recently. I had a meeting with my boss after an incident at work where someone tried to assault me. I told my boss I didn't feel supported by her after it had happened as she wasn't present and didn't manage it well afterwards. In the middle of the meeting, boss says, "Perhaps you want to consider some easier work in a different department?" Me, "What? Why?" Boss, "Well, you do take on a lot of extra work that you don't need to. A lot of this work is managers' jobs. Maybe you need to learn to say no to taking on all this work?" I asked if there was something wrong with my standard of work, if she had concerns, etc., and she says number 3 months down the line 4 of the team leave and they get new people in. Boss, "Oh, OP, can you induct new starters on their first day?" Me, "Sorry, boss, that's a manager's job." Boss, "Can you complete fire risk assessment?" Me, "Sorry, boss, that's a manager's job." After a while, she stops asking me things. Then one day she's working from home. I'm pretty sure she has been telling her manager she's on site throughout lockdown, but mostly isn't. Huge incident kicks off with residents. Emergency services are called, etc. I call boss and explain to her what happened. Boss, "OP, can you please do follow-up with commissioning body, staff, and residents involved and write the report, send it all directly to me, please?" Me, "Sorry, boss, you will need to come in to manage this. I'm not a manager. That's not my job." Boss, "Just this once, please?" I refused to manage the incident. Turned out she was visiting a friend who lived at the coast whilst she was meant to be on site. Someone accidentally let slip to her manager when he called in the incident, and there was no one to manage. He asked me to deal with the incident. I explained I couldn't and that boss had reported me as taking on too much work to OH. A full investigation has been launched into her conduct and ability to do her job. Manager now talks to me directly and supervises me. He is helping me apply for a promotion. Boss is on leave, pending investigation. Edit again to answer people who ask why I would do boss's work in the first place. The residents still deserve support and to be given the best chances. If I can make that easier for them by taking on extra work, I will. There is enough going on for people who come to us. They don't need things being messed up because others don't want to do their jobs. For people asking, yes, I now have a manager's job in a new service, which I am helping to create. My ex-manager went sick for several weeks and hasn't returned since.
Story number 6. If a single radio's battery dies, shut it all down. This happened over 5 years ago, and it still ticks me off whenever I think about it. Also, sorry about how long this is, LOL. I was 17 working at a big theme park and had been working there for the better part of the year. I had quickly picked things up and was usually regarded as the responsible one on the team when it was just a bunch of us teens working a ride. We had a college student intern lead who was not good at leading or training new hires. We'll call him M. At my main ride, it required 3 people minimum to operate. 1 person in the control booth, 1 at the entrance gate, and 1 at the exit. However, we could have 4 or 5 if we were incredibly busy to help deal with the line. The people in the booth and at the entrance could not see the person at the exit directly, so we used radios. The control booth also had a camera on the exit gate. From day 1 on the job, We were taught hand signals in case the radio dies or for quick communication. These signals were universal across the entire park. That summer, 3 freshly certified kids, we had to take tests to prove we paid attention to training, started the ride with someone locked inside the fence, aka not in a seat. Twice it was another employee, once it was a guest, which was a huge deal. The thing with those incidents was that those in the control booth didn't notice their mistake until the others screamed at them to hit the e-stop. Those new hires were either retrained or moved to a simpler ride. Well, one incredibly busy day, there were 5 of us running things. Me, M, and 3 others. M had been called over to another ride, which normally wasn't an issue. About an hour later, someone was scheduled to go home, and M hadn't come back yet. I called the other ride and asked them to send him back. We could have run things with 3 of us, but it was super busy and we really needed a 4th. A few minutes later, someone, not our lead, was sent over to take over. Weird, but no big deal. Another hour or so went by, someone else needed to go home. I called again asking for M. Also, all the radio's batteries were dead or dying. Things had slowed down, so I, being the spare 4th person, took the radios to the office to get fresh batteries. This took less than 10 minutes, and in that time, the guys had switched to hand signals as we were trained. When I came back, our lead had once again sent over someone else to take his spot. At this point I realized that M was probably just shooting the shit in the nice air-conditioned booth at the other ride. Now the guy that got sent over to us was normally at a roller coaster and hadn't been at this ride in over a month, so I gave him a quick review and he took controls. I turned around for maybe 30 seconds when I hear yelling. I turn around, and the ride was stopped maybe 3 feet off the ground with our entrance guy locked in the fence. The guy at controls saw what he did and hit the e-stop, something that the other screw-ups that summer did not think to do. We had to call upper management, and wouldn't you know, M came running over. This time the highest of the higher-ups came over as well. They pulled each of us aside and interrogated us, which was odd, then walked away and talked for like half an hour. They then fired the guy at controls on the spot and came up with BS reasons to get the rest of us removed from running rides. They absolutely were only doing that to make an example of us. I tried to rip into M for shirking his duties, but as an anxiety-ridden kid it didn't hit very hard. I was mainly pissed off that they fired the poor guy who never should have been there in the first place. Remember I took the already dead radios earlier? They tried to say I had removed communication devices from the ride area, which prevented them from letting controls know they were outside the gate. They were basically trying to pin the whole thing on me. Total bull. BC, this happened after I brought them back. I assume M threw me under the bus for being in charge while he wasn't there. Also, we had hand signals. I tried explaining that to them, but they didn't give a shit. I refused to sign the paperwork, which would be admitting fault. So this fight was stretched over multiple days. Plus, I was leaving for college in like 2 weeks and didn't want to spend my last days of summer cleaning bathrooms. They gave us a new rule. If a single radio was dying, we had to call a manager to fetch us a new battery, even if we had people to spare to go grab one instead. If a radio died, we had to close the ride. Managers roamed around the whole area and were responsible for so much, so if you called them and it wasn't urgent, it could take a long time for them to show up. The next day, my radio was dying. I called the manager. Half hour goes by. I call again. My radio died. I shut down the ride. The people in the over an hour line got pissed. I explained to people that we had to close because of the radios. Naturally, they got even more pissed BC of how stupid that was. Manager shows up minutes later. I took the battery from him with a smile on my face, and he left without saying a word. After many complaints, management was magically fine with us using hand signals again. I never signed that paperwork. I left for college, and funny enough, M also went to the same college. I ran into him once. He just kind of nodded at me. I gave him a dirty look, and I never saw him again. The next summer, I was rehired by the park as a lead and actually did my damn job. What's your own malicious compliance story? Share it in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out our other story videos. Thanks for watching. Take care and see you soon.